Welcome to the Diary of Discovery, the podcast where we delve deep into the human experience of healing and transformation. I'm your host, Jackie Carr, and each week we will sit down with inspiring individuals who have embarked on their own personal journeys of healing and self-discovery. From overcoming trauma to navigating life's challenges, our guests share their raw and honest stories, offering insights, wisdom, and hope to all who tune in. So grab your favorite cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and join us as we uncover the power of resilience, courage, and the pursuit of authenticity. This is the Diary of Discovery. Welcome back to the podcast. I am super excited to be talking to the wonderful Jess today. So, Jess, do you want to just start by telling everyone who you are and where you are in the world?
Hi, Jax. I'm Jess. I live in Muizenberg in Cape Town, and I am a single mom of two beautiful girls, ages 11 and 8. And I am a graphic designer, and as well as a Herbalife distributor. So I've got two little businesses going, and I absolutely love living in Muizenberg and by the sea. I grew up in Johannesburg, and then I left when I was 23. And then I lived in the UK for a little while. Well, a little while being 6 years almost, and then came back to Cape Town, and the rest is history. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing, wonderful. It's always good when I get to speak to people from close to home, because a lot of our guests on the podcast have been from further afield. So thank you so much for agreeing to be with us today. It is absolutely incredible. And as you know, we're here to talk about your healing journey and share what you went through in a hopes that it can help other people as they go through their own journeys. So take us back to the beginning, back to that kind of like moment where you realized that healing was needed and something had to change. And yeah, give us some context of what we're going to be talking about today.
Okay. Right. So about 3.5 years ago, I stopped drinking alcohol because I realized I really had a problem with it. So to take you back a little bit further than that, I grew up around adults drinking like regularly. So it's not to place blame or anything like that, but growing up in the 80s and 90s, um, parties and bras and festive occasions were always around alcohol. And I think, thinking back, I was always going to be a drinker. In my head, that's what adults did. You know, they drank alcohol. In fact, getting drunk was very, very normal. It was super normalized. And both my parents, because my parents were divorced, both sets of parents always had some sort of bar, or a wine cellar or something like that. And yeah, alcohol was just free flowing all the time. And I was actually encouraged to drink alcohol from a very young age. Can you believe that? Things like having some red meat for dinner or something, and then a glass of red wine was presented to me. And no, you must drink the red wine with the red meat because it pairs really nicely. So I can't even remember what age I was, but I wasn't, maybe it was a teenager or before a teenager, like maybe 11, and that was already presented to me. So like I said before, alcohol was always in my life, and it was always normalized. And it was a way for the adults to relax, to celebrate, to stay off boredom or something like that. So all the different ranges of emotions were remedied with alcohol. So my earliest memory of getting drunk was probably, yeah, like I said, 11, 12, around there at a New Year's Eve party, where there was a table of champagne. And I think it was JC LaRue, the sweet stuff. Oh my goodness. So I was sipping on champagne, and my mom was like, "No, you can't drink that," you know. And then my stepfather, he was like, "No, let's see what happens. Let's let her do it and see what happens." So instead of parenting and going, "No, that's bad for you," it was like, let's see what happens. So I must have had a few of them, maybe, multiple glasses of champagne. And then I remember literally passing out or falling asleep on one of the beds while the adults partied and got drunk. And then I woke up with them wanting to go home at whatever hour in the morning, also drunk. But I woke up with such a headache, and I already had that first hangover, and that was very, very young. So it was never discouraged. Alcohol and getting drunk was never discouraged. Excuse me. And yeah, so as a teenager, it was always a thing that I was trying to get into and sneak sips here and there. And I remember at my 18th birthday party, my dad had a bar, a really well stocked bar. And I would go in there and sneak shots of tequila. And he actually caught me sneaking some tequila, and he got really, really angry because I was sneaking it. So already then I thought, oh, this is naughty. This is exciting, and I could have just asked him for it because I was 18. But yeah, so, and then going out at that time, that's quite a while ago now, drinking and driving was a thing. You turn 18, you get a car, and you can drink legally. And then they put the two together, which is crazy. So going out as a student, getting super, super drunk, driving home. And I just don't know how we survived those years because it's absolute madness. And the parents' advice was don't get too drunk, not don't drink and drive. It was just don't get too drunk. So, so that is a bit of my background, and then just a lot of partying and getting drunk and just feeling shame, so much shame the next morning. And then the blackouts started happening. In fact, getting drunk and passing out, that is a blackout as well. But my blackouts turned into getting drunk and then blacking out, but still functioning. That's the absolute worst because then you do stuff and say stuff that is absolutely horrendous and you don't have a memory of it. And then the shame comes in the next morning where you're getting people asking you, how are you feeling? How are you feeling today? And oh, that was so much, it was so awful. The shame and the regret and the hangover, and then drinking again to like cover that up and just, drinking to not feel feelings. Yeah, so that happened basically my whole adult life. Yeah, so that's the background of my addiction that started really, really young in my teens.
Wow. My gosh, it's so interesting though, because when I hear you describe what you went through, like mine wasn't as um, as hectic, if we say, but there was still, I can still relate to a lot of what you're saying in, at all of the like family functions we went to, we would be having a braai, everyone would be drinking. I remember the same thing, New Year's Eve party, nicking I think it was like a brutal fruit or something ridiculous from the fridge and like hoping that my mom wouldn't notice. And like me and my best friend like sneakily drinking it like at like midnight, like thinking that it was so funny. And there is an element of like being a teen and like experimenting with that stuff. But then I also think there is that element of the environment that you're in and whether people are saying to you, actually, there is a danger here. Like, yes, like it is a thing that people do, but you need to do it with caution versus, you know, haha, let's see what happens when she gets drunk for the first time. Like it's a very kind of different environment, isn't it? So I guess the my kind of question for you would be then like what made you say enough is enough? What made you like what was the situation that made you actually go, oh, this actually isn't the life I want to live?
Well, fast forward to having two babies, well, getting married, having two babies, and then waking up with literally the worst hangover. Probably, I mean, I had very, very bad hangovers in the past, hangovers where I just couldn't function. And yeah, so, but this particular hangover was my husband looking at me, not really talking to me. So I immediately knew something bad had happened the night before. And he was like, I don't want to be married to a drunk, you know? So I think that was one of many low points, and that was possibly the final, well, it was the final straw. And then I said, you know what, I'm gonna go to AA, I'm gonna go and see a therapist. And that was the last time I had alcohol. That was 17th, my sober date is 17 March 2021. Is it 2021? Yeah. And yeah, from that point onwards, I saw a therapist, an addictions counselor, and I went to AA for about a year and a half. So that was the point where I just thought, you know what, I've been denying, I've been lying to myself. I've been lying to myself in the fact that I can only have one or two drinks. That is a total lie when you're an addict. The thing about addiction is that once you've had the substance or the thing that you're addicted to, you just can't get enough. It's just never enough, you know. And I was always chasing the little buzz. You get the little buzz from alcohol, and then for me, I always wanted to keep on that level, but it just obviously doesn't go that way. You just get completely wasted and messy and everything like that. So yeah, so I went to therapy and AA, and then unfortunately, a year after being sober, that's when our marriage actually properly fell apart. But I think it had been going really not so well for a couple of years before that. And I think there was a codependency relationship. My husband was looking after me and making sure I didn't die and looking after the kids because he actually started toying with being sober quite a while before that. So he was drinking. So we used to drink a lot together in our 30s, and then we had kids, and he naturally slowed down, but I didn't. Um, and he became the sober, responsible one because he had to. And to this day, I don't think he drinks that much. He maybe has a beer or whatever, but he's then started drinking alcohol-free stuff, which is very clever. Yeah, so that was the catalyst. That was the low point, the rock bottom, if you like. There were many, but that was the rock bottom. And then that
Mm.
was, yeah, a good 3.5 years ago.
Wow. I mean, congratulations, firstly. That's an amazing thing to realize that you've got an addiction and then do something about it. Because I think a lot of people struggle, not even with the doing something about it, but just with the accepting and saying out loud, yeah, I am actually addicted to this. Especially, I think, when it comes to alcohol, I think it's easier to admit addiction to drugs or things that aren't so normalized. But when it
Yeah.
comes to alcohol, I think a lot of people struggle to actually say, yeah, I am actually addicted to this substance because it's just, they're like, well, I'm not drinking more than anyone else. And I'm like, yeah, well, maybe everyone's addicted. And that's something to consider. So I think that it's a really incredible thing to be able to sort of have something happen and then just say, actually, this is enough now. I've realized that this is a problem and I'm going to do something about it. I think that takes real strength. So I think that that's really incredible. And as you were kind of going on that therapy, AA, that journey of recovery, what did you have to embrace about yourself? What did you find out about yourself that you maybe didn't know before?
On my journey of recovery, sure. I found out that I wasn't alone. That is one of the biggest things for me about addiction is that you feel completely alone. You're the only one in the world that's going through this, and you feel like the worst person in the world. Terrible wife, terrible mother. And going, especially through AA. I'll talk you through AA and then therapy. But AA taught me that there's always levels of this kind of thing. There's more people, there's people that are more addicted, and then you get the introduction through AA. It's like the movies. Hi, I'm Jess, I'm an alcoholic. And then you go through the room and they say, hi, I'm so and so, I'm an alcoholic addict. And then, so they go through the room and then some people are sitting there 20 years sober. Fantastic, And then you get someone who's sitting there with 24 hours sobriety. So there's people that are in recovery, they're all in recovery, but some of them are still actually drinking or they're addicts and they're still using. So they're sitting in the room and sometimes it's 10 years sober and then the next time they're there it's 24 hours sober. So you're getting all types and all races, all classes, everything in the same room with essentially the same problem. So that is such a powerful thing with AA and therapy.
Mm.
So my therapist is a recovering alcoholic and he's 25 to 30 years sober now. And he's one of the most perfect type of therapist because he's in the field with you. He knows exactly what it's like. And when you're in the therapy session, he's telling you, he talks a lot about his recovery and what happened with him and situations. And so you're definitely not alone, and the therapy really, really helps in that from that point of view because you're not alone, and this person knows exactly what you're going through and what you've been through.
That's amazing. I think it's so like in all of the healing journeys that we speak about with so many of our guests, we always talk about this idea of community, surrounding yourself with people who have gone through or are going through something similar, because it makes such a big difference when you no longer feel alone. And it also reduces the amount of guilt and shame that we feel because we can actually look at it and go, I'm not the only person that's going through this. It's not, it's not just me being weak or, it's a circumstance. It's the way we've been like raised. There's so many things that can feed into it that I think it's really important for people to hear that message. And obviously the AA is a worldwide organization. So people can find help like this wherever they are in the world. And I think that that is, yeah, I think that that's really, really incredible. So, were there any moments as you were going through, in the last 3.5 years, where you thought like you can't do this, like you can't stay sober? Were there any moments where you thought, actually, I'm gonna have a drink, or you were really kind of tempted?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, maybe one or two times because I still had alcohol in my fridge for ages. So weird. Um, and I had a bottle of tequila in the freezer, which I then actually gave to my ex-husband. I said, oh, I found this. And I always it goes through my mind because it's like a sort of empty bottle. I just like, hand it over and think, okay, well, it's not, I didn't drink, in my head, I'm justifying an empty bottle. I don't think he thought anything of it, but moments, I don't think so, I loved that little buzz. I loved the look of a glass of bubbles. I think it's so fantastic. It just looks so beautiful, and a little bit sexy, and then drinking a glass of champers. But I've been around alcohol since then, people drinking, and I've gone into bars. It's not my happy place anymore. It feels weird and wrong. Um,
Mm,
it's a bit more comfortable now, but like I can't be around drunk people. It's
mm,
just not great. You can't connect with them, and that was me for many, many,
mm,
many years. People telling me stuff and people trying to connect with me, and me being drunk and not remembering stuff. It was awful. But um, I don't think there were any moments where I thought, "Ah, I'm just gonna have a drink, you know. No
mm,
one will know. I still
mm,
literally have wine in my cupboard, but it's from a portfolio. I'm a graphic designer, so I've done wine labels. So it's because of that. But I really
mm.
should just empty them out because they serve no purpose here. I'm alone quite a bit because my girls are with my ex-husband. So technically speaking, there's a lot of time that I could drink in secret and no one would know. But it is so destructive. It is just so, so, so destructive and such a slippery slope that no, I haven't thought about it. It's like I said, the buzz. That is the nice part, that little initial buzz, but the rest is just. My therapist used to say to me, play the movie through, play it through from the beginning to the end. So you have a drink, you get the little buzz. What happens at the end? The end is me blacking out with a hangover. So, wow, not worth it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I like that idea of playing it through to the end, seeing the seeing the whole movie through. It gives you that context of actually, do I want to do this and is it worth it in the long run? And how did people around you react? So you said obviously, a lot of your family were drinkers. Um, I'm guessing a lot of your friends were drinkers as well. So, how did the people around you react when you came out and said, actually, I've realized I have a problem and I realized that I'm going to stop drinking? Were you met with some resistance? Were you met with support? Like, what did that look like?
The full range from people being in denial to people going, yeah, 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 that makes sense. I had people in my life who were pretty much not really speaking to me anymore, or on the verge of cutting me completely out of their lives. And I've had my parents still. I mean, I think now they kind of get it, but my mom and my dad are in their 70s, and for them, an alcoholic is someone who wakes up in the morning and with the shakes and then goes to a bar at 10 in the morning and drinks or has vodka and brushes their teeth with vodka, things like that. So for them, that is what an alcoholic is. So my dad even said to me, I think you just had a bad habit, just a bad habit. Um, yeah, my mom. I think because she is a drinker, always has been, and she uses it as her sort of therapy and to calm her nerves and yeah, all that kind of thing. And like 5 o'clock is wine o'clock, that kind of thing. So um yeah, so that I don't think they fully accepted it. They may have now, or they're just super proud of me that I've just cut it out of my life. But I had friends that were a little bit shocked, especially using the A word, alcoholic. Um, People just sort of they get a little bit shocked when you admit that about yourself, and they didn't see the messy, messy side of me that my husband got to see. They didn't see me passing out in front of my children. They didn't see me falling downstairs and hitting my face and then getting a blue, like a bruise on my forehead, things like that. So people did see some of that, but they didn't see the full me, from start to finish. So a lot of people were a bit shocked and they're like, oh, really? Okay. But then I also get people in my life that I can't really mention names, but they themselves are very heavy drinkers slash alcoholics, and they still talk about my worst moments in like a comedic way, but they don't realize, or maybe they do realize because they themselves get drunk and pass out as well. But There's so much shame attached to these moments that forms part of the old me, the drunk, messy me, and it's just who I was. It's part of my past. I can't do much about it. I can only just make my future brighter. But they still mention these moments, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a tough one. That one, that festival that I got drunk, and my children, my one of my kids was there, and yeah, it just ended up being a super messy night that particular day, and that still brought up. So that's tough. That's tough to deal with. But thankfully, 3.5 years down the line, you do healing. You heal yourself and you stop punishing yourself eventually, because that's a huge part of being an addict and being messy in public. You punish yourself a lot. And I used to like phone people or message people asking how bad was it, how bad was I, da, da, da. And then some people's response was, oh no, you were just happy, you were happy drunk. And other people's responses would be, you were speaking another language, you were saying some weird stuff. And so yes, a lot of shame attached to it, but I think that goes hand in hand with addiction. Lots of shame.
Yeah, definitely. I also think that when you're in a group of people who all normalize something like drinking or drugs or, whatever it is, whatever they normalize, it's really, really easy for people's tolerances to be very different. So, where you're saying, actually, I'm coming out and saying that I'm an addict, people around you will be going, well, I drink more than her and have worse hangovers than her. And if she's saying she's an addict, then that puts a light on me as well. And people can take that very personally and very much like, well, if we all do the same thing and suddenly you're changing your mind and deciding that it's bad, then that suddenly makes us all look bad. So I think that there is a lot of that like personal attachment when you're in a group of friends and then you change the norm of what everyone's doing. And either people kind of slowly come along on that journey with you, or people go, you're kind of out of the group now, and we're going to be over here and carry on doing what we're doing. Um, but I think that it very much is that thing of being attached to like shame and guilt. And when you step out of that and decide, I'm not going to do this anymore, the people around you can almost amplify their feelings. And I mean, like, I have never luckily been addicted to anything like drugs or alcohol, but I definitely have a sugar addiction. And there will be times in my life where I cut out sugar completely. And when I do, the people around me who would normally be going on cake dates are suddenly like, oh, are you not going to eat cake? And I'm like, no, 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 not doing it. And then they're like, oh, now I feel bad for doing it. And it's that really interesting dynamic, isn't it, of how we behave can actually impact the people around us. And I think that guilt and shame are massive emotions when it comes to healing. We talk about them in so many different healing journeys. And once we can actually move through those, it really kind of shifts the dynamic of how we can heal. So I think that that is really, really good. And my question I always ask people is this idea of like, what was the biggest outlook change that you made in your life from, Jess who was drinking to Jess who was no longer drinking? Like, what shifted?
Oh, so many things. um, my views on health and wellness, my just my general sort of being able to interact with people without alcohol. That was a huge thing because I thought that was how I did it, going to parties. It initially I felt a lot of anxiety because I thought, oh my gosh, can I actually speak to people? Can I can I still be funny? In fact, saying, talking about stuff and mixing up your words and slurring, that was just part of me being social, and people just used to think I was fun and wild, Jess. But actually, I think I'm much more of an introvert. So the introverted side of me needed alcohol to interact and be funny and socialize with people, but it just made me more clumsy and fumbling over my words and slurring and saying silly stuff. Um and now I'm still the introvert, but I can interact with people just really well and have intelligent conversations and remember stuff. And so the realization that I don't need alcohol for social events is a big deal. And there's people in my life who drink a lot, and they think that, yeah, their social lives is very much centered around alcohol. So for them to take that out of the situation, then they tend to not go to social occasions because they can't do it without. And so a lot of things like that have shifted the social side of it, just being more active and healthy, and making better food choices as well. So when I was drinking at my worst, I was about 15 kilograms heavier than I am now. So realizing the empty calories involved, and making bad food choices when you're drunk or hungover.
Mm.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that, the health side of it, and just the benefits, silly, not silly things, but benefits like remembering stuff, remembering
Mm.
conversations, and um, people saying to me, "Oh, we had this conversation before," and when I was drinking and full of shame, that used to that used to kill me inside because I had this conversation I should remember, but I can't because I was drunk. But now, if someone says to me, but I'm sure I told you this without shame, I'm like, no, you didn't, because older conversations from 3, 4 years ago aren't relevant anymore. But now, in the sober years, I can clearly remember. No, you didn't say that, or that hasn't been done, or I already told you this. But before, I had none of that. I had no recollection. I had no leg to stand on because I don't remember. And now I do remember. So that's fantastic. It's one of the best things.
I love that. It's so amazing when I talk to people who have gone through these different journeys, because as we have these conversations, I can start to see how people ended up doing the work that they do. So as you talk about all of this, I'm like, oh, I can see the kind of natural link for Herbalife becoming part of your life and for the way that you now kind of run your business, because actually that makes sense in noticing and looking at how you could actually look after yourself better and how you could, put in good calories and actually feed your body properly. Because as you said, when you are drinking, you're not necessarily focusing on that stuff. You are not, I mean, alcohol has got so many calories in it that so many people don't recognize. And some of the listeners will know that I run at a local running club, and literally before marathon, the easiest way for everyone to drop weight is just to cut down the beers that they drink because it is that, again, that culture of everyone goes for a run, has a couple of beers, like, it's the kind of norm. But it does make you pick up weight. Like, it is a very, very known fact. So how did that kind of shift of the actual work that you do come into play? Was it quite a quick shift, or did it take you a little while to kind of bring it in? Yeah, what did that look like?
No, it took a while. I've been in Herbalife for a year now. Um, and I think, okay, so there is a little bit of a process. So I was still drinking quite a lot in 2017. When did I actually stop? 2021. I've actually got photos of myself how I looked then because I've been on a health, wellness, and dropping kilograms journey for quite some time now, like basically my whole life, and I just could never shift that weight. Um, and you don't realize you're in denial about how much the calories count. So I think it was easily, well, 2.5 years before I actually went into Herbalife after being sober, and and then everything sort of linked in. And when you're trying to lose weight, you just I was in denial. So I started fasting about 4 years ago, and I was still drinking then. And the fasting really worked for that period of time. And I thought, oh, I can cheat the system. I can still drink, but I just don't eat, which is such a weird thought process. But it did actually work. And I was exercising like a crazy person as well. So I was dropping the weight, still living in addiction, not eating. So my life was actually not going. I mean, I thought I was succeeding, but it wasn't actually going that well because I was doing all the wrong things to my body, but I was losing weight, so yay. Um, but then yes, no, I realized a year ago when I turned 45 that now being sober and everything, that my body was actually I was starving myself. So that really resonated with me, and Herbalife came into my life at the same sort of time. And then I started eating higher protein and eating first thing in the morning, whereas when I was fasting, I would only eat at about 11. So, and still exercising fasted. So that was not doing my body any good. Yeah, so it's all sort of tied in slowly, and now I feel like I'm on the exact right health journey that I need to be on. Eating first thing in the morning, doing not a lot of exercise. I was exercising like a crazy person, so I exercise, but nowhere near. It's not sustainable to smash it 5 days a week on hit. So everything seems to have balanced out really well now, which I'm very proud of because I came to these realizations by myself, but also through being coached in the Herbalife, community. So it's all worked out really well for me in that
I
respect.
love that. That's so amazing. So, what would your advice be for somebody who is struggling with alcohol at the moment, maybe drinking more than they want to be, and whether that is, that they fully are calling themselves an alcoholic, or whether they're just teetering around the idea that maybe they need to cut down drinking a little bit.
Hmm.
What would your advice be to somebody who's going through that process now?
Okay, well, I'll speak from my point of view that my therapist always said to me, if you were going to cut down, you would have by now. So that is the fundamental difference between an addict and someone who doesn't have an addiction. People that are not addicted to something can just stop or take it down a few notches. Someone who
Mm.
is addicted, it is never going to be enough. And that's how I know when I can see alcoholics, that people that think they've got it under control, they cut it out for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. And then after that month, they just let it rip and just take it to the next level again. So my advice for someone who is thinking about stopping drinking or think that they have a problem, you probably do. And it's a harsh reality, it's a harsh truth, and it's not meant to, I'm not meaning to be horrible about it, but you have to be honest with yourself. If you've got a problem with something to the point where you think, have I got a problem? You probably do. So listen to your intuition, listen to yourself, and maybe don't be in denial anymore. And it's really not that scary to take alcohol out of your life. I thought it was. But through therapy and AA, you realize that it's actually not that scary. You can function, you can have a much better life without the substance and without the hangover and the shame. So people, I think people are just too scared because they don't know how their life's going to be because it's such a huge element in your life. You plan so much around it. You plan your social life, you plan being alone at home, watching a movie, going out somewhere. It's all centered around that thing, alcohol. And so to take it out of your life it's a scary thought, but life is better without it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, final question of the podcast is, what is your next level of healing? So, what are you focusing on? Is it going deeper in the area that you're in at the moment? Is it something new that you're looking to tackle? What does that look like for you?
Definitely going deeper into the Herbalife journey. That for me is it's going to be the rest of my life. I'm going to have it in my life for the rest of my life. And it's actually teaching me so much about confidence and self-worth. And um, yeah, my self-esteem is higher. My confidence is higher. I've always had a low self-confidence, unfortunately. So, the Herbalife thing is just it's amazing how it encompasses all of that stuff. So it's we have training all the time and we have an amazing community. So for me personally, my personal growth already has been amazing. So that is definitely something that is helping me through this. I do want to go back to therapy. So I think therapy for me would be something that I would actually want to be part of my life forever. Um, and they do, you're supposed to be in AA for the rest of your life, really. But I feel that it's not me. I just feel like I've got a lot of other things in my life that are helping me through it and keeping me focused. For example, the community in Herbalife, that's keeping me super focused on my business and how I'm going to support myself in the future and my kids. And yeah, I think for me, therapy will be something that'll be part of my life forever. So that I recommend that so much. And of course, AA is free. So if anyone is struggling with something like this, even if they don't think they want to stop drinking, maybe just log in on Zoom. You don't have to have your camera or your audio on. You can just log in and hear what other people have to say. And through that, they may be encouraged to stop. So yeah, that is therapy, AA, and a supportive community. You do need support. You need a lot of support around you. You don't need people going, but you don't have a problem. You only have a few drinks. You need people to be in your camp. You need to be, you need to have people in your side going, okay, let's do this. I won't drink when I'm around you or something like that. So a supportive community, supportive friends and family, your loved ones, that is so important. When people are in denial around you or don't think it's that bad, that's when you may just slip back into old habits. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely second therapy for life. I have been doing therapy for a number of years now, and even though I am a much more healed and much more balanced and much more centered person now, I still go to therapy every 3 weeks and just stay on track, make sure that I am processing through my feelings and working through everything. Because I think it's one of those things that if you do it for a while and then you stop doing it, you can actually have that sort of like build up of the emotions that potentially make it harder for you to kind of focus and get through life. So this has been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, for sharing so honestly. Um, we've not had anybody talk about addiction in this way before, so I really, really appreciate it. And that's exactly what this platform is about, is just giving people a conversation that they can listen to start their journey, to help them along the way, to make them feel like they're not alone. So as always, Jess's details will be below. We'll put the AA details below as well if anybody wants to reach out to their local AA. And yeah, just Jess, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. We massively appreciate it. Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of The Diary of Discovery. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends, family, or anyone else you think might benefit from the stories of hope and transformation. Your feedback means the absolute world to us, so please take a moment to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us to reach even more listeners and continue to bring this meaningful content to the world. Until next time, remember, your healing journey is valid. You are never alone, and you have the strength to get through this. Keep shining bright, and we'll see you in the next episode of The Diary of Discovery.